of the greatest advances in medical technology is being crushed and destroyed by an individual with no medical education or scientific background. RFK Jr. last week announced that he was cutting funding to some 22 different projects regarding mRNA technology. This is going to have far-reaching consequences well beyond your COVID shot. It's going to interfere with treatments for cancer, treatments for diabetes, and autoimmune disorders. Let's see what he's talking about.
Over the past few weeks, BARDA reviewed 22 mRNA vaccine development investments and began canceling them. Let me explain why. Most of these shots are for flu or COVID, but as the pandemic showed us, mRNA vaccines don't perform well against viruses that infect the upper respiratory tract.
So he states that the mRNA vaccine was found to be not effective in treating these upper respiratory viral illnesses. That goes against all current data. The mRNA vaccine was found to be extremely effective and a very useful tool in controlling this novel viral illness. It saved 3 million lives. It sharply reduced your risk of getting severe COVID, getting hospitalized, and decreasing the load on the hospitals, which were already quickly becoming overwhelmed.
To replace the troubled mRNA programs, we're prioritizing the development of safer, broader vaccine strategies, like whole virus vaccines and novel platforms that don't collapse when viruses mutate.
He said that he wants to focus on whole virus technology. Well, that's not new, but there are significant drawbacks to whole virus vaccines. First of all, it takes a long time to make one. So should the situation arise where you're hit with a severe novel viral illness, it'll take months to develop a viral vaccine. It could take a week to develop an mRNA vaccine. Just because a vaccine might contain the whole virus doesn't mean it's going to be any more effective. We witnessed that in China. They did not have the mRNA technology. They only had whole virus vaccinations. It was found to be very unpredictable when it came to developing antibodies towards the COVID virus. And if it did develop antibodies, they weren't long-lasting. And when we're talking about whole virus vaccines, what he means is taking a vaccine that has the entire viral particle in it. And that works two different ways. We either have a heat-killed virus in there, or we have a live virus that's been attenuated so it cannot make you sick. But there are drawbacks to whole virus vaccines. First off, not everyone could get them. The immunocompromised, HIV patients, pregnant women, and people that have allergies to any of the components cannot receive these vaccines. And during this past COVID crisis, there were some vaccines that were whole virus vaccine. Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca, which was really seen in Europe. They were found to be only 70% effective as the mRNA vaccine, and they had a host of issues, mainly cerebrovascular clots, strokes, and neurological complications.
HHS has determined that mRNA technology poses more risks than benefits for these respiratory viruses.
I see. People who got the virus are better off than people who took the mRNA vaccine. Let's say people who got the virus had a risk of getting severe COVID. They would end up in the intensive care unit, gasping for breath, most likely ended up on a ventilator for an indeterminate period of time, and if they survive, woke up to find that they had a tracheostomy, renal failure, clots in their legs, and damaged lungs. Some people even needed a lung transplant. You also ran the risk of developing long COVID with all its neurological complications. And people who had mild disease even got long COVID. And let's talk about myocarditis. People who got the virus developed a much more severe form of myocarditis. They were hospitalized for a longer period of time, some died, and some wound up with cardiac issues that seemed to be ongoing. I know you're going to say, well, the mRNA vaccine could give you myocarditis too, but it was very different. It was a small subset of the population, usually men in their early 20s, after the second vaccination. But it was short-lived. It responded very nicely to anti-inflammatories and steroids, and in a week or two, it had resolved. Nobody died, and nobody has developed lifelong consequences.
mRNA only codes for a small part of the viral proteins, usually a single antigen. One mutation, and the vaccine becomes ineffective. This dynamic drives a phenomenon called antigenic shift, meaning that the vaccine paradoxically encourages new mutations and can actually prolong pandemics as the virus constantly mutates to escape the protective effects of the vaccine.
If the vaccine caused this SARS-CoV-2 virus to mutate, then how would you explain 3 to 4 antigenic shifts in that virus from the day of inception in Wuhan to the day it hit the shores in the United States, and we didn't have any vaccines yet? So no, the vaccine is not making that virus change. Viruses mutate, and they mutate all the time. The influenza virus might mutate once or twice during the entire season. He's stating that the vaccine caused the virus to change a little bit. He called it the antigenic drift. And by throwing in scientific terms like that, it adds a little unworthy credibility to his narrative. What happens is viruses can have an antigenic drift where they change their genome ever so slightly. The vaccines will still work, your body's still going to know it's an invader and send antibodies to attack it. However, sometimes they do antigenic shifts in which they change their genomic pattern so much that it appears to be an entirely new virus. The vaccine won't work, and your immune system will not detect it as the pathogenic invader that it is. So it doesn't matter that the vaccine might be coding for one protein versus the entire virus. If you have a genetic shift, neither of them are going to work.
Now we're developing a universal vaccine at NIH, which is a vaccine that addresses the entire phylum of viruses. And so it's a vaccine that mimics natural immunity, and it is effective against any kind of mutations.
So they're working on this magical vaccine that's going to be able to attack all different types of viruses. It's going to be able to have antibodies produced to a whole host of antigens that could constantly change, and they'll always work to attack it. This shows a complete lack of understanding in immunology. When you create an antibody to seek out and destroy a specific antigen, it's very much lock and key. There's no way that you're going to be changing that antigen and have the antibody still interact with it. So this omnipotent vaccine that he's talking about doesn't exist. And if Dr. Bones didn't talk about it in Star Trek, it's not coming anytime soon. Some research scientists have called the events of this past few days really a tragic shortcoming. And what can you do about it? Well, under normal times, I would say write to your congressman, but I doubt that's going to do anything these days. So there's 3 things you have to understand. 1, we're not going to be ready for the next pandemic. And that could be a real possibility since we're out of the World Health Organization, which would have alerted us to things coming our way from other parts of the world, but we're out of that loop now. To know that cancer research is going to come to a screeching halt. If you saw any advertisements for treatments of lung cancer or pancreatic cancer using vaccinations, well, this was that mRNA stuff, and that's going to stop. Oh yes, I know he said that for some cancers, this mRNA therapy is going to remain. But I can tell you from a business point of view, if you were a research laboratory spending billions of dollars to do mRNA research for, let's say, pancreatic cancer, are you going to continue that if the government could cut your funding overnight without any notice? You're not. So it's going to be curtailed. And we are going to fall behind medical advancements compared to the rest of the world. Well, I hope you learned something in this video. Once again, if you like my content, click subscribe and hit the bell for future videos. Just understand that the changes made in this past week are going to affect all of us for generations to come.